We need to know about what's going on with the quarterback of the Bears and what's going on inside the league. Our segment with Kurt Warner is sponsored by Plumbers 911 Plumbing Emergency. Call the plumbing professionals, available 24/7 at 1-833-PLUM-911. It's also brought to you by the fine folks over at Busey Bank, building business, growing wealth since 1868. And Kurt joins us now on the Circa Resort and Casino Hotline. If you haven't been to Circa, you are missing out, and this is a perfect time to head out to the desert. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Not a lot. I mean, obviously, the Bears are out here trying to make it through the rest of their schedule, and they continue to lose. So we won't bore you with that because we know that you had to watch the game. But we are curious on how we should look at the really good things that Caleb Williams did yesterday. How do you view it, especially considering that a lot of them happened after the Bears were down 20 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is at this point, you're trying to hang on to everything you can hang on to, and you're trying to catch glimpses of things that you say, okay, there it is. You know, there's the moments, and you guys are right. I thought in the second half, he did some really good things, made some nice throws, some nice reads, went through his progressions nicely at times. And, so you see those things, and, we've seen him at different times throughout the season that it excites you to know that it's there. Now the question becomes, how do we get it to show up consistently? How do we get it to show up for 60 minutes? The times that he's not doing that, why? Why is he not able to do that? Why does he get stuck sometimes? But I think, again, with any young quarterback, and especially with some of the turmoil and changes that they've had this year, you hang on to the positives the best you can and say, okay, we can just find a way, to put that in a capsule and get that each and every week. We've got a chance to be really, really good, and especially at the quarterback position.
Kurt, if you were the offensive darling of assistant coaches, almost assuredly the number one head coaching candidate out there, and you had watched a full year of Caleb Williams tape, would you feel good about taking him and this Bears offense on as a project next year?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is you look at, do you have pieces? And I don't think there's any question that the Bears have pieces on both sides of the ball to be successful, and pieces that you can build around. Of course, you're always looking at the quarterback spot, and it's a quarterback driven league. And as I said, I think one thing that we see all over the place is there's a lot of coaches out there that believe if you give me a talent at the quarterback position, I can coach it, even if somebody else hasn't been able to coach it very well. The next guy believes, well, they're not me, I can do it right. So we've seen that numerous times throughout the league and at different levels is give me a talented player and I believe I can coach him. And so knowing what you have in Caleb and what we've seen at times and the talent level that's there, I think most coaches are going to say there's enough pieces around him to be successful, and there's enough there that we've seen that I can coach him to be more consistent. And yes, I believe, when you're just looking at the stuff on the field, anybody that's looking for a head coaching position would be excited about, what the Bears have.
So Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Lions, is the guy, of course, we're talking about. I want to play this for you real quick. This is Jonathan Vilma talking about what Ben Johnson does in offense. And if you as the quarterback could translate this for us and the listeners, that would be appreciated.
Look at the offense of Ben Johnson. It's balance, which is I love, right? Defensive guy, I love seeing the balance. But I also see the aggression. And what he does a great job of is always having the first option the first option always coming right behind the clear out. So if you're Caleb Williams, you start to understand this play action. You start to understand how the offense is supposed to roll with the running game. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams combination could be very good for a long time to come.
The first option right behind the clear out. What does that mean from a quarterback's perspective?
What it means is they're trying to use someone specifically to clear out an area. And then, kind of your primary guy or your main receiver is going to, work right behind that area. So you're hopefully opening it up with the clear out, and then you've got your guy there that's right behind it. So but again, that's a theory that's used in a lot of football. Is right. We're trying to use somebody to clear out an area for someone else is what he's talking about. But I will back that. I think Ben Johnson does a great job of tying in. We've talked a lot about pure progression plays in Chicago. Well, Detroit runs a lot of pure progression type plays too, but I think they have a little better basis in what I would call defender read type stuff as well. They've got a progression that they want you to work through, but it's still based off of concepts that I really like, and that can help you to not just look at the receiver, but look at defenders that are within the scheme of or the concept that you're trying to run. So it kind of accomplishes both things that we've talked about a lot this year. But to me, it still plays into the hand of looking at defenders and allowing the defenders to tell you where to throw the football. So I can read, two guys at the same time. I can read, I can have a 1 and a 1A in terms of my first read. So I can play the game faster and I can know exactly where I want to go with the football based on what those defenders do.
Kurt, I wanted to follow up on something that Spiegs asked you and dig a little bit deeper. I imagine that even though you have this career as a broadcaster and everyone sees you doing that really well, that occasionally someone's been like, hey, Kurt, you interested in coaching? I'm curious, if you were looking at the Bears, specifically the Bears, not Team X, the Bears, what questions would you need answered from the Bears before you would take the head coaching job?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always want to have the answers of philosophy moving forward. Well, how you want to build this thing. What are the things that are most important? Are you willing to spend money and go out and build this thing, the way that I would think you'd want to build this thing? I would want to sit down with, Caleb Williams. I would want to sit down with the quarterback and know, what he's capable of and what he sees. And I'd like to know the mental side of the game with him to really have an understanding of, what I could do and what I felt he could do within, my type of system. Even though, as I said, most of us coaches or guys that would be in a coaching position would feel they could make guys better or they could build a system around that guy. I think it's very important to know who your quarterback is and how you think he fits with what you do. But I think those would be, the main questions that I would ask, especially, again, we'll go back to Ben Johnson, especially looking at Detroit and how they've built it and what has been important to them and building an offensive line and being able to run the football to complement their quarterback. I think those things are really, really important. So I would just kind of want to know what the plan is and what the powers that be, how they see, building a football team. And does that coincide with what I feel building a football team is all about?
It's good stuff. We worry about the timeline not being a matchup. If you were going to be the head coach, would you want the general manager to be on the same timeline as you? Or would you want to talk about those kind of things in terms of power over a general manager, or at least aside a general manager?
Well, I mean, yeah, it always makes sense to go, I'd like to be able to connect with my general manager and have, be a part of that process, knowing that either the general manager picked me or I, had a hand in bringing a general manager there because we see things very similar. But I mean, I think that's another piece is you talk to the general manager and you say, okay, how do you see a football team? How do you want to build a football team? What are the most important things? Talk to me about this roster and what you see as the strengths and weaknesses so you can kind of compare those things, because you definitely want someone who has a similar type mindset on, what, good players at certain positions look like, or what the positions that we're looking for, what we need in that player. It's not always just, hey, let's get a good player at this spot. I mean, that sounds easy. Like, let's just get a good player. Well, sometimes you want to have, two wide receivers that complement each other by doing different things, or, offensive linemen, how you want to run the football or how you want to play in the pass game could dictate that. So I think it's very important that you and the general manager see things the same way. And I've always said that about offense coordinators and coaches and quarterbacks, is that I think it's very important not just to have a good system, but to make sure that the plays that are being designed and called connect to how a quarterback sees the game. And so it makes sense to them in their mind in terms of how they process information. I think all that stuff is very important so you can have continuity, whether it's a guy that comes in with you or a guy that's already there. I don't think it really matters as long as you're having success and you see building success in a very similar fashion.
Kurt, Mike Sando over at The Athletic wrote about the Vikings and Sam Darnold, okay, as not just the most surprising team this season, but among the most surprising teams of the last 36 seasons, because dating back to 1989, the Vikings are tied for second with the most wins above what the Vegas totals were in preseason, okay, plus 6.5. And they're tied with a few interesting teams, but they're behind only one team. Would you like to guess, Kurt Warner, which team had the most wins over the Vegas projected totals through 15 games in NFL history?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the '99 Rams with a team that we were in 4-12 the year before, and some of the things that were going on there. So I'm just saying that because you're kind of leading me into this, but I have no idea. Really.
Oh, of course it's the 99 Rams. Plus 7.5, number one since 1989. Games won above the Vegas projections. The list is fascinating because you are there because Trent Green got hurt. Darnold is here essentially because McCarthy got hurt. You've got a Drew Brees Chargers team, even though Phillip Rivers was already there. You've got you've got a Ben Roethlisberger rookie team. It's every one of them is like a quarterback anomaly of some kind. So if you were the Vikings, would you keep Sam Darnold?
I mean, I think you have to look at the economics of it and, kind of figure out what you're thinking even beyond next year. Like, do you believe Sam has earned the right to be the starter? And now JJ is going to have to take that from him, moving forward. Or do you look at it like JJ's still going to be our starter when he gets healthy, but it was so good this year with Sam that we need to sign him for another year at least, see if he can do it again, see where we're at with these two guys after that year. So I think a lot of that really depends on, the economics and what you're willing to pay. But do I think he's earned the right to be the starter there when you don't have an incumbent guy? Of course I do. I mean, he's had an incredible season, and we'll see how it finishes up. But, man, I would never want a guy like that to walk out. I guess you could say it was similar to me in '99, right? I was playing on a minimum salary, at the time. And, had that, great year. And obviously I was going to be under contract for a couple more years under whatever my deal was. But it's like, okay, he only had one great year, but it was a really, really good year. It's hard to just let that guy walk out the door unless you're solidified at that position moving forward. And I don't think Minnesota is. So, if I'm Minnesota, I'm trying to find a way to keep him for sure. And now it's just a matter of, are we trying to find a way to keep him in the short term, or do we really feel he can be our guy moving forward and we sign him to a little bit longer deal?
Kurt, as always, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being flexible today.
You got it. Merry Christmas to you guys. Have a great holiday.
Same to you.